Can you hear me? Yeah? Okay. I love ETHDenver, but I don't love panels. And so we're going to mix it up a little bit. And the whole vibe here is that we're just like four friends at happy hour, chit-chatting over a beer. And that's kind of what Farcaster dev ecosystem and user ecosystem is like anyway. So it's a little bit on brand. I got a good intro, but I would love for each of you to introduce yourself, be very, succinct, precise about what you do, and then we can take it from there.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Rish, co-founder of Neynar. We provide infrastructure for Farcaster and no-code frame tools.
Hey, I'm David. I'm working on frames.js and also open frames, and I've been building on Farcaster for a while as well.
And I'm Johanna. I'm a full-stack developer at Liquality. I am originally a wallet developer doing all things wallets, and right now we're doing collective account-abstracted wallets for frames and Farcaster dApps.
Awesome. Okay, so I actually know all of them for the past 2 years more. So we were all on Farcaster kind of, let's say, early 2021, or late 2021, early 2022, and beyond. But I'm really interested to know, why did you choose to build on Farcaster, given the other options in terms of decentralized social? And at what moment were you like, oh, OK, this is the now. I'm committing to building on Farcaster versus anywhere else?
Yeah. So my co-founder and I, we were both at Coinbase for the last 4 years. And part of our work at Coinbase was to build and develop on social protocols. Like my team worked on XMTP integration on Wallet, for example. And Mo and I spent a lot of time just learning about the protocols in the space, like all the way from pPIP to BitCloud, which later became DeSo. Lens from Aave, Farcaster. And when Farcaster came around, it was the first time we felt like there was a plan for a protocol that could actually scale to mainstream audience. And both of us were coming up on our 4 years and thinking about what to do next. And after going through some idea maze, we were just like, let's just build on Farcaster and see what happens.
And you initially started building an app, correct?
Yeah.
Like a client on Farcaster, right?
Yeah. We started building an app back when hubs didn't exist.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Stick to building infra. You're better at the infra.
So we started building an app that had a few people beta testing it, Ted, David, and we had built our own infra in-house, running hubs, indexers, and all of that. And one of the evenings, as a random experiment, we threw out a landing page that said, hey, if you pay us, we'll give you access to the infra. And people paid us immediately, so we were like, oh, OK, maybe we should build the infra.
So you're like, there's demand here for infra. And I'd love to hear from David and Johanna as well, because I know both of you also tried to build early and did build early in David's case.
Sure,
so
yeah.
how was that experience?
Yeah, so in 2022, early 2022, I decided that I wanted to get into decentralized social. I decided that this was like the most important mission for the open internet, is to have a credible sort of decentralized social protocol. And I looked at a bunch of the things that were happening, and a lot of it felt like it was building for a crypto audience where the transaction costs and the gas costs were just magnitudes too high. And then I came across Farcaster, and I think two things really resonated for me. One was that they were very much designing the architecture to reach a mass consumer audience. And then the second thing was that they were being very thoughtful around the effects of financialization in social and trying to avoid it, and sort of cultivating an early sort of high quality community in their app. And so those two things really drew me in, where other things that had been sort of financialized social didn't. And so I started building in late 2022, and I had to sort of reverse engineer the Warpcast sort of the APIs that they were using for their own app in order to get data, because this was like pre sort of decentralized protocol.
Just to make sure everyone understands what he had to do, there was no documentation, and so he literally had to go and inspect the source code to figure out what Farcaster, or how Farcaster was built, and then reverse engineer it back.
I
Like, that's gigabrain stuff, but also that's not easy for the developer ecosystem, right? Like, how are you supposed to build apps efficiently and quickly and, have fun with it when that's the uphill battle you're against? But
yeah, I remember like Searchcaster, .xyz was like the first API, and everyone was super excited. But like now looking back, it's super limited. You can't really get much data from it, right?
I mean, still, it's the best search client out there for what it's worth.
Also, really quick, Coinbase Carl, welcome to we're doing a little happy hour chit chat here instead of a panel. Do you want to take 2 seconds to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hello. Sorry for being late. I'm Carl. I'm with Base Developer Relations. I actually was super honed in on doing like hackathon judging, so super excited to see people building on frames. And short and sweet, I'm here to help build the Base ecosystem.
Incredible. Okay, so again, reverse engineering, Searchcaster was the first API for Farcaster. Still one of the best. Shout out to Greg Skurloff, who is another OG. And then kind of, Johanna, you want to talk more about what you were seeing as in terms of issues years ago?
Sure. Like, well, a few years ago, yeah, I think it was just like the biggest thing was like the lack of APIs, because you basically had to build your own indexer and your own database, and also your like little dApp or client or whatever you were spinning up, and you had to have all the infrastructure on it on your computer and on your machine. Like you had to spin up a local hub, and then or something like this, or rely on hubs that then went down all of a sudden, and you didn't know what was going on. So that was basically the biggest the thing, and that's why I'm also like very happy for Neynar and the other APIs to exist now, which makes it so much easier and faster, because you can kind of just give them that layer and focus on the client stuff.
So then fast forward, this is kind of, let's say 2022, early 2022. Fast forward 2 years, and as of a month ago, me, non-technical person, baby engineer, am able to code or no code something, a product, and deploy it on Farcaster through a new feature called Farcaster Frames. This is what Base and I think Coinbase, Corey, no, sorry.
Just Base.
Just Base. Just Base has also done. Neynar has a no code. Yeah. David ultimately really leaned into frames too. And so maybe we can take a step back and talk about how frames are perhaps what I believe to be one of the most exciting features, primitives for decentralized social and consumer social more generally. And then even if you think about social as kind of the infrastructure or pathway to economics as well, go from there. So anyone can take it.
Yeah, I think I'm the right person to take this one. The context on that is mid last year I pivoted to trying to build mini apps on top of Farcaster. And I think frames are really powerful because the thing we've seen is that users really want to use one app, and that's actually the best way to deliver an experience. And so Farcaster is really like a distribution layer for everything else. And so far it's been links. So you distribute links, you get the user to follow the link and connect their wallet and do the things. But that's a lot of friction, and there's also a safety assumption there when you go to an unknown domain. And so frames really pull that experience into the client. And that also gives developers now a rich interface with which to sort of build new experiences, so that the social apps aren't just, text, image, link, but there's actually like rich experiences right there. And I think there's some like nostalgia towards like the Facebook days when you sort of had, Farmville in your feed and all sorts of poking. And would love to see that sort of flourishing of experimentation and playfulness again.
Mm-hmm. And there's like a lot of such games built on frames already. And I think everybody in Base's case, Jesse launched Super based on Neynar, and everybody else on the stage already uses Neynar to build frames to some extent, from developer to no-code frames. And there's a rich developer ecosystem you can also provide for building frames. And that, like, you built a frame that I didn't even know could be built using our Frame Studio, and that was like a crazy experience.
Yeah.
So,
I love Neynar Frame Studio. I'm pretty sure that within the first 48 hours of you launching it, you probably wanted to kill me because I had feature request after feature request. But I would also love to hear from Base about, I think the base team galvanized around frames. As soon as it was launched on Friday, the entire weekend was just a frenzy of frame development, and the base team, out of any other network on there, really rose to the occasion and helped support the dev ecosystem. So I'd love for you to just share what it was like on the inside, because we all saw what it was like on the outside.
Yeah, definitely. So literally Friday, we got the news the same time as everybody. And it was like probably 10 of us had a good 3 days of doing stuff that entire weekend. So we made on-chain kit pretty quickly, which was like our kind of helper. And that started to do really well. One of the other things that we had was like the Girl Scout cookies commerce integration. So, you know, be able to buy Girl Scout cookies from a frame. That's still super fun.
Yeah.
I've never spent crypto that fast. So.
Sorry.
I was saying I've never spent crypto that fast as like that Girl Scout cookie.
Yeah, I even ordered them even though I don't live in the U.S., so I didn't get any cookies. I just felt like I was missing out.
Yeah, it definitely helped just Base's distribution. We got to both help like people that we've known before and also net new developers. So I think that was my favorite part, was that we did kind of empower and help give our Base distribution to all the Farcaster users that were experimenting, doing new things, and helping push kind of like what is possible forward.
There were definitely, one of my good friends, Brandon, built one of the first generative NFT frames. And I remember we went surfing right after he like shipped it. We went surfing and he was like, I'm really afraid. I think my gas, like all of my gas, like I'm not gonna be able to cover gas costs for everyone. And by the time he came back, the base team had already completely filled the contract so that the mint could continue throughout it. So just huge shout out to the base team for being huge supporters of all of the dev activity. Johanna, I would love to hear what you are thinking in terms of frames forecasting, what you're building as well.
So we are right now actually using frames as like a go-to-market, and we've seen like huge success because there's like a lot of noise on Farcaster and on every social media, but you kind of have to ask yourself like, how do we like disregard that noise and tap into a user's attention span, right? And frames are great for that because they're still so limited and simple that it makes it very easy for users to interact with them, because it's literally just usually like 2 button clicks, right? So yeah, we've seen like the numbers grow like much faster using a frame than like redirecting them to our original dApp. So that's kind of how we are using Farcaster and frames right now. So excited to see like how we can add more wallet stuff into that, because one thing I think is really interesting right now is also like Farcaster clients that have a wallet integrated in them, where you can enable more of like the economy aspect with a wallet UI. I know a lot of people are building that right now. Maybe Corbin at Patch Wallet is the most famous one. So yeah, excited for that as well.
Yeah. I will say too, I don't think it's my point of view personally, is that I think what David said at the beginning is that what we all appreciate about the Farcaster ecosystem was that it built intentionally with like long-term value, and it was focused on what value does a social network offer us as users and as humans, and how is that different than like pure speculation or financialization of a personality or of content? And I think that long-term view enabled us all now to build products with that same kind of long-term view, value-focused approach. And I would even say like, as a user, or as users here, my question is like, okay, if you're a developer, that's one thing. But for people here who aren't developers but care about their social network or care about their social profiles, what value, or like how can they add value to what you are building? So for instance, I know I use no-code, Neynar no-code Frame Studio all the time. Love it. You can see all of my frames on my profile if you want. But otherwise, like what should users be doing? And then I also want on the other side to talk about how can brands leverage the data from frames as we think about signal to noise. But let's first, anyone who here in the audience, by the way, has a Warpcast profile or Farcast profile? Hell yeah!
That's
Look
a
at
lot
that.
of people.
That's like the majority of the crowd. Granted, this is a Farcaster panel, so of course you would be here. But anyways, who wants to take it?
Yeah, I'll start with the user side, and maybe somebody else can pick up the brand side. So I think on the user side, like it's pretty simple and standard, which is like come in, engage meaningfully, thoughtfully, find other people who you have common interests with, come join a channel that you can contribute to or learn from, and the whole ecosystem and the user interactions are built on top of like meaningful engagement, not over financialization or any kind of other things we have seen in the past in Web3 social protocols. And I think brands have recently started engaging with that meaningfully as well. I think Base is a great example that has a very strong presence on Farcaster. And maybe David or Carl, you guys can.
Sure. Yeah, I think Farcaster channels are a great opportunity for brands to build a Farcaster native community that's an alternative to Telegram or Discord. And I think it's a better alternative because it has native discoverability of their content into their home feeds, which Discord and Telegram don't have. And Telegram groups or Discord groups that become too big become very noisy, and immediately users mute them, and then they have no hook to come back into your community. The difference with Farcaster channels is that if you keep posting, the user, if they follow your channel, will see those posts, if they're popular enough, in their home feeds. And so there's a great distribution hook. The other really great opportunity for brands with this is frames, of course, right? Like, it's a great way to distribute your product and onboard new users in a way that, you know, we're seeing across the board. Brands do 10x volume on NFT mints, on signups, on subscriptions across the board. And everyone I've spoken to at ETHDenver is building a frame pretty much. It's kind of blowing my mind.
Yeah. Also, as a brand, you think about, let's say, these 10,000, you're getting 10,000 mints, whereas before you would maybe get 10 on Farcaster, you just didn't have the distribution. Now you're getting 10,000 mints, but you have the on-chain and off-chain data to then look at who is minting and what they care about, what their what content, what channels they're posting in, what their activity is on-chain, and you have a much better way to think through like the entire conversion funnel. How can you then pinpoint and figure out who do we care about minting this and how do we reach them? Whereas anywhere else, if you post it in Telegram, you can't really do that. Like, you don't have the way to track it in the same way. I'm curious from the Base side too, is you're enabling, I mean, you're basically an outsourced support team for anyone building. And so I would love to hear, like, okay, if I decided, hey, I want to build a frame and I want to incorporate and kind of have transactions on it, what's the best way for me to go about working with Base on that?
Yeah, definitely. So like, we have our own Base channel in Farcaster. That's kind of a great entry point. We have our support Discord. But I think a big part of it is that like the Base team just goes out and find things as well. So sometimes like we come into a situation without ever talking to that creator, just because we want to see that economy kind of grow. I do think, going back to that data question, I just want to add from the Base point, something that we think about a lot is as we move towards like an account abstraction world in 4.3.7, that off-chain data of your activity and what you're doing is very much going to be input to like, should we be sponsoring gas for what projects and what people. And I think that's going to create a really interesting future of bringing more people on chain, because some of that complexity disappears and it's just a Web2 interaction.
Yeah, go for it.
I see like a world in the future where like the Farcaster protocol has many clients, like many, and all of those clients have like different tasks or problems that they solve, right? So we could have like a Farcaster client that is a wallet where you pay stuff, and then you have the social feed, and then you can, it's kind of like WeChat, but decentralized. You know, like WeChat takes care of payments, but it's also a social feed, also a messaging network. And we could have the same with a Farcaster protocol with different clients doing different things, or maybe one day one client that does all the things, but ideally many clients so we don't rely too much on one, right?
Yeah. Like, in an ideal world, if Farcaster succeeds, that means it has 1 billion users of the protocol at least, and then hundreds of clients built on top of it, with thousands of developers building those clients.
Yeah, I think a really interesting point here that's sort of underappreciated is that right now, Warpcast and all the Farcaster clients look very similar. And that's a result not of the technical constraints, but really of the content that's being shared and just the sort of earliness of the scene. You can build Twitter on Farcaster. You can build Reddit.
Instagram.
You can build Instagram. You can build YouTube. All of these social apps can be built on top of Farcaster as a technology. And so we're going to see a lot of that come as Farcaster grows.
And I think I don't know who else in here. I have Instagram, I have, Twitter, I have all these other things. And the beauty for me is you hear a big pain point. I think a lot of people who are on Twitter all the time is like, I can't believe I have to restart to build a Warpcast following. And I'm like, yes, but once you do that, you never have to hit that cold start problem again, because the account and the profile you build on on Warpcast right now, you can then use it for whatever Instagram equivalent, whatever Venmo equivalent, all of these other things. So your followers come with you, and you don't have to start over ever again when you're building on a decentralized social network like that. I don't know if you guys, like, what opportunities do you see thinking, let's say, 5 years in the future? I know we're talking about, I think there will be like 1 billion users and et cetera. Like, what excites you thinking about the future?
I think there's a couple of technical improvements that I, just being more on the engineering side of things as an infrastructure company, have been excited about, which is Farcaster kind of changes the web from just an open web to an open and signed web, where every action you do is signed with your private key ED25519 signer, and you can now prove things about user actions that couldn't be proved before. And this is going to be increasingly important in the world of AI-generated content, where you can now put reputation behind a signature, and then the signature is from a human that says, hey, I signed it. And also increasingly important against AI bots, where now you know what is a bot versus not, because which signer signed what. And that, I think, is going to take us into a different shape of the web, and we'll be better prepared for the next set of changes that we are seeing generally in the tech world.
I'll go from the base perspective. Definitely Jesse's favorite tagline is on-chain is the next online, and very much so if we're signing everything with private key, or even Web 2 now is moving to passkeys, right? I think Target and PlayStation, all of them have passkey sign-ins now, which is much closer to the crypto world. So I'm looking forward to having truly on-chain interactions where we can pass value back and forth, rather than trust all of these intermediaries and brokers that we deal with today.
And I'm excited actually to just build both on top the Farcaster protocol, but also getting more engagement of the community builders like Ted and David proposing FIPs and everything like that. I know, David, you especially have been quite active in that, right? You proposed the channels and also most recently the mod protocol. If you don't mind, I have a question for you about that. You said that they declined your mod protocol offer, FIP offer, and then built frames instead. How did you feel, and how did the
I love the stirring of the pot.
Oh boy. Okay. How do I answer this?
Honestly.
Yeah. So I was building a client until mid last year, and I realized that one of the constraints was, if you wanted to innovate on the content format, if you want to do video, if you want to do games, you want to do polls, you actually need these things to work in all the clients. And there was no good way to do that. And so I was experimenting individually, but I decided to pivot and start working on mod protocol. And so I was building mod protocol, building open source software for Farcaster, and had it integrated in a bunch of clients. And it came time for a big launch, and we were okay, we're gonna pitch Warpcast, hey, you guys gonna come on board with us for this? And then we also wrote a improvement proposal around how we envisioned extending Open Graph with rich metadata and how clients would use that. I did get a bit of more of a notice on Frames than everyone else, but yeah, Frames was similar, and it solved the same problem. It was better in some ways, and we sort of realized that Frames was an opportunity for us to sort of realize the vision we'd been trying to do, and so we just jumped on board, and sort of Warpcast helped with distribution a lot more than we would be able to. So in many ways, it's great for the ecosystem and great for us as well.
Mm-hmm. And I will shout out David Diab. He is definitely pushing the boundaries and pushing for FIPs and proposals to think about how do we make it better for users and for developers. And I think just as we wrap here, it's like a good testament to the community and to the ecosystem and to the protocol is that feedback and dissent and criticism is encouraged and actually sought out. Because at the end of the day, everybody's looking to make it better. And for us to realize this vision of having, multi-billion users using the protocol, you kind of need to listen to the people using it today as well. So anyways, just to wrap, I would say, just like give a closing word, one thing that you want everyone to know about Warpcaster, what you're building, and then we'll sign off. Louder. I think your mic cut out. Do you want to go here?
I was saying, I think it's the consumer crypto.
Something like that was good. Like we're going to a break. We could like listen to you for another half an hour for sure. This mic works. This mic works. So.
Finish real quick.
All right, it works. So hold on. Have your say. This is your moment.
I was saying, I think Farcaster is slated to be the consumer crypto protocol, and we are here. We have been talking about consumer crypto, and I think there's something to be built on top of this protocol.
That's awesome. Yeah. Anything else?